Welcome. In the last video of this series, we discussed how to sharpen a chisel and why my 3-bevel method, I say my, it's not really mine, many people use it. The 3-bevel method is my favorite method because it's the fastest, it's very convenient, very efficient, and it gives me always the best possible results. So it is absolutely essential, very necessary that this back of the chisel is actually very flat, especially in the first 1 centimeter. And that is so because we use the chisel. You saw that in the previous video when we were testing our freshly sharpened chisel. We use very often the back of the chisel as a reference so that we use the surface that we have already cut as a reference of flatness to keep cutting and create flat surfaces. And that is very important in many situations, like pairing dovetails, for instance, and you really want to make sure that your chisel is flat. So if you have a belly here, it's very clear when you're trying to remove the burr that you won't be touching it at all. And so when you lay flat, if there is a belly in your chisel, the edge won't be contacting the stone, and this will cause all sorts of problems. Mainly that you won't be able to remove the burr, and you will be forced to lift up the chisel, and that's the worst thing you could possibly do, because then you're creating a bevel, and your chisel is doomed, and you won't be able to use it for fine pairing work, like pairing dovetails or precision work, or even just as simple as flashing a dowel on a surface. That's a very important part. And the other part of this is to remove the scratch pattern that is left by the manufacturer. This is so important. Remember that, as we discussed in the previous video, a sharp corner, a cutting edge, is found in the intersection of two surfaces that need to be very polished, let's say, so to speak, like a mirror, because any scratch pattern in there will result in a serrated edge, and this is not what you want. You want the cleanest possible edge. That's why we need to remove those manufacturer scratches with the finest possible scratches, and this is what this video is about. So the first step is to evaluate the surface. I'm going to look at the scratch pattern here, and I can see very clearly a circular scratch pattern going more or less across the chisel, and clearly we want to get rid of this. This is a nice chisel. It's made by DICTUM, and it's a very good quality for the price. I think it's about 20-25 euros, something like that. And for that kind of money, that's quite possibly the best option you have in the market, or the best one I've tried here with my students. They bring chisels of all sorts, from their grandpas to really high-tech 100 euro chisels. And of course, it's great to have a LIE-NIELSEN. I can thoroughly recommend you a LIE-NIELSEN chisel. Also, Veritas are making great chisels, but they come at a price. If you're ready to pay more than 100 euros for one, then go ahead and enjoy it, and you will find that the scratch pattern is very fine, and they are very flat indeed, so the work to flatten them is almost none. This could be a good intermediate, something that I can thoroughly recommend you. Not as really refined as those super expensive chisels, but it's one that once you get it ready, and it won't take long, you can use it for a long time. I think they are cryogenized, and they are really tough. I think it's Rockwell 62 hardness, so it's pretty. They're pretty tough, really, for most work. You will find them very useful. Okay, so I'm acquainted with this scratch pattern, which is very fine, but I can still see it very well. Low quality, very low quality chisels, they have very coarse scratch patterns, and they will take a long time to perfect. And the other thing I want to check is for flatness, or not really for flatness, but I want to know what kind of a surface is this one. Okay, so let's have a look at that. I'm gonna just get closer to a window. Yeah, and I can see a nice hollow in there, which is actually quite beneficial for us. There are even some manufacturers like LIE-NIELSEN, which is a British manufacturer, which are deliberately imposing these ever so slight concavities to make your flattening work much quicker and much easier. Sometimes with cheap chisels, that's a complete lottery, and we have found all sorts of shapes. The most common being either a belly or a hollow, but you don't really know what you're gonna get, so it's left to chance. Here I have a slight hollow, which is super beneficial for us, because this means we are going to affect the area behind the cutting edge right away. Okay, a belly would give us much more problems, really, and it's much more difficult. Just as with wood, it's easier to get to flat from a concavity than it is from a convexity. Okay, and if you have trouble remember those words, a cave is concave, so you will ever remember this. So how do we do this? I'll begin from a coarse stone, relatively coarse. This is a 1000 grit stone. And by the way, our next video is going to be all about sharpening gear, kinds of stones and so on, kind of jigs, and how to flatten them, how to maintain them. What's this black thing here? All of that. So I get to this 1000 stone. I put some water in it. This is a ceramic stone, so it doesn't need any soaking. And I'll put my thumb in here, and I'm not going to grab this very hard from the handle, because there's the risk that I lift it up or lower it down, and then I'll start introducing errors. So lots of pressure here. Here is the business end. Here it's just a good support, kind of a company here. And you can see straight away how we are removing all these metal particles. So I'm going to make a few more strokes now. And the stone is telling me, as you can see, really most of the action is happening here, and there is some contact in this area. So we're good. And I can check now what kind of a surface I have. Yeah. And I can see very clearly the scratch pattern is gone right next to the tip. So this is good. And I can see also some other area here where I'm contacting this side of the stone. And this is about 3 millimeter, a 3 millimeter continuous stripe. So I think you can see in the close-up that we have replaced the manufacturer's scratch pattern with this coarse stone, 1000 grit stone scratch pattern. Okay. I wanted to stress two main points, two ways of doing this wrong. One would be to not be careful and to promote a belly across the width. If you get a belly in this dimension, that's going to be a big problem. So you really need to make sure you're completely flat here. And if in the case of very thin chisels, let's say 8 millimeters or less, which would be 5/16 or less, I would rather just go in and out of the stone this way. As always, here almost no work, and everything is happening right at the tip. Okay, this could be very, very correct. And some people even like to do both movements and keep an eye on the scratch pattern and see the scratch pattern going along or across the back, and this way they can really determine if there's any possible belly across the width, because you should be able to replace a long scratch pattern with a cross scratch pattern all together at once if there is no belly, or you can just check with a straight edge here. And I can see this is nice and flat, and I'm ready to continue. The other potential source of problems is that as you work, you will create a hollow in the stone, and this will translate inevitably into a belly in your chisel. So you really need to be careful, and you need to re-flatten the stone all the time. We usually, with the students, we agree that we won't make more than 50 strokes in every side. So 50 strokes here, 1, 2, 3, 50, and then we can turn the sharpening stone and do 50 more. But after that, I'll stop and reflatten it. Okay, so I'm gonna just reflatten that. We'll discuss about how to keep your stones flat in the next video as well. Yeah, so this is one of the several methods, maybe the most expensive one, but very effective, and that's a diamond lapping stone. Okay, now we cannot leave this as it is because the scratch pattern of a 1000 grit stone is not fine enough. Okay, so we want this with the scratch pattern of our finest stone, which in this case is a 12,000 grit stone. And so I cannot really effectively replace a 1000 grit stone pattern with a 12,000 grit stone, because it is so fine that it will take a very, very long time. So for this, I will use somewhere in between a stone, which is, in this case, it's 3000. And I actually have it only for the purpose of this in between chisel preparation. But as you saw in the previous video, the sharpening of chisels in my method involves only a coarse 1000 grit stone and a super fine stone, in this case 12,000 grit. So let me check if this one is actually flat, because I don't know, the last student that used it, I don't know if they really made an effort and did this right. We usually leave them checked, and so I have just scribbled in pencil, and I want to see all the pencil marks gone to make sure this is flat. Okay, this definitely not very flat. I still need to do a little bit more work. Okay. Make sure you always keep your stones flat. It's a good idea, and flatten them quickly, as often as you think you need to, because otherwise it takes just too long and it becomes boring. And you know, a stone can really damage your chisels. Okay, so now I'm ready for this, and the process is just going to be the same. As you can see, this stone here, this one is a Japanese water stone, and it needs to be soaked beforehand, which makes it a little bit less practical, but it's about the same thing, same idea. So all my intention is here. I'm gonna go on and off this way. Or maybe if you want to be a little bit more effective, you can go this way here. Oh, be careful not to cut yourself. Yeah. And I can see right away that the scratch pattern has become very shiny. And this is an indication that I'm really replacing one scratch pattern for the next one. I can see changes, all the variations will become very apparent in this bag. So you need to keep an eye and try and remember what you saw before. And so concentrate on that and you will be fine. Okay, just a little bit more, I think. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, the previous scratch pattern is completely gone. And please don't forget to subscribe and to like this video if you like it, if you find it useful. That's great help for us. And now I can move on to the next stone, the finest stone, and you will see that most of the work comes in the beginning at the coarse stone. The more refined the surface becomes, the easier the work is, because the scratch pattern is smaller, kind of, so it's much less work to remove. So this is my 12,000 grit stone. And I think that's gonna be enough. So what I see here is an almost perfect mirror, really, in the first centimeter of my chisel, and that's plenty enough. We'll do the text check in a minute. You will see that, but that's totally okay. That's very nice, shiny. I know it's flat, right at the tip, and we can pair dovetails to perfection with this one. But now, since this is a new chisel, there's a couple of things we need to do. One is the ordinary sharpening, because we've got this flat back here, but I can see a burr, which is a byproduct of the work we've been doing, and we have only one 25-degree bevel. So this is going to be a quick summary on our previous video of the chisel sharpening process. So don't forget to check that one if you want to know more. So that's my projection for 30 degrees. And since I only have one large bevel at 25, a few strokes only will be enough to create this micro bevel. Let's see what 2 strokes did. Yeah, I'm gonna make another one. But you can see that because we're tilting up 5 degrees, we're affecting right away the adjacent area to the edge. And so we are creating our micro bevel, and that's fine. I can feel a burr on the other side now, on the back, which is byproduct, of course, of the work I've done in this stone. Okay, so now I'm going to raise the projection by about 3 degrees, and I'm going to come to the finest stone to create the second micro bevel. Just give me a second to remove that slurry and we'll avoid contamination. Okay, so avoiding contamination, cross-contamination from stones, it's a good idea. It's not really smart to spend 150 euros in a stone and then just have it all contaminated with coarse grade. Okay, and so now, as you know, a couple of strokes is plenty enough to create that micro bevel here. Which, by the way, since we are in the first sharpening of this chisel, this whole process may be a little bit redundant, but it's just you know, a quick run through the method for you to remember all of this. And finally, I'm going to remove the burr that I can feel, barely feel, on the flat back just by going in and out of the stone this way. Just back and forth. And that's plenty enough. Okay. Now we've got our chisels ready for work. It's only missing a little bit of camellia oil, which I'm going to show you because you really want to see that. But before, we'll do the text check. So as you can see, it's actually a mirror. To be fair with you, you'll always find scratch patterns. There are always impurities and things that it's pretty inevitable. So don't worry about those. They won't be a big problem at all. Okay. One last thing I need to show you is that these corners here, they might get extremely sharp. Actually, I nearly cut myself. They might get extremely sharp because of the flattening. So you want to break this a little bit to avoid cutting yourself when you're working. So if you're familiar with cuts here, usually it's because of the friction here and on this very sharp edge. And for this I use just a diamond stone, which I find very handy. Those diamond files. I'm gonna come at 45 degrees, much lighter around the edge. Yeah. Alan Peters had his chisels really worn in those areas, I believe, because he would complain of sore fingers. And of course, you can recognize this from David Chatsworth's recommendations. And yeah, so it's a good thing to do. You can do this with just sandpaper. And whatever you do, this shouldn't cut your finger. Okay, so let's continue with the next video on all the gear you need actually to get started sharpening, which is a very important part.